Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'll talk about the Louis Vuitton Kensington Derby shoes. I have them here, I'll do a bit of an unboxing, and give you my thoughts about what the shoes are like, the construction of materials, whether they're comfortable, and whether they're something that you might consider if you're in the market for formal or at least somewhat business-like shoes. And if you've got any thoughts about them, let me know that in the comments below. So let's do our oh-so-exciting unboxing, such as it is. So here, obviously, I have the LV bag, so we can take the box out of this bag, which is incredibly enthralling. And as you can tell, I have my white gloves on just for added drama and effect, or really just to save you from my truly awful fingernails. And in the case, we have our LV box with a nice bow over it, which is all very pretty. So we can try to take off this bow, and this is probably going to be the easiest way to just kind of slip it off. Now, at the end of it, we have kind of our pull tag, and we can pull out this like a drawer, which I guess makes it look all very fancy. Now, that's what the LV shoebox looks like. Probably bigger than it needs to be, but still kind of nice. Then within the box, we have obviously the shoes in their own individual dust covers. Then we can take out the shoes, and we have it right here. Now, if we explore the shoe a little bit more, we can see that they're a Derby shoe, which should be unsurprising because that's exactly how they're advertised. Now, they have a smooth toe, and they have calf leather as the main construction, with calf leather, epi leather at the back. Now, epi leather is the textured leather that LV sometimes uses on some of their products, including their bags and some of their wallets. So, for example, I've got an epi leather wallet right here, which I use for travel-related things, so just storing some things when I'm traveling overseas. It's a reasonably nice point of variety from ordinary, flat, plain leather. But in any case, this has those two types of leather on it. Now, whether or not you like that depends on exactly what you want in shoes. If you want just one type of leather, these obviously won't be for you. But if you want variety, these are obviously going to give you that. Now, if we go around the shoes, we can see that there's this same type of leather all throughout the back and on both sides of the shoe. This is the case on both of the shoes, relatively unsurprisingly. Now, toward the back of the shoe, we have a little bit of some additional construction at the back. We've got the seam of the leather at the back, which I guess helps with some additional support, helps when you're kind of jamming your foot in here to try to prevent the shoe falling apart, which is probably for the best given, well, the price of the shoes. We've also got LV on the side right here, which is kind of embossed into the leather. But otherwise, the rest of the appearance of the shoe is relatively standard and exactly what you would expect, given the photographs of the shoe. Now, the sole of the shoe is not super thick. It's sort of medium thick is what I'd say, standard thickness. Not massively thick. It's not one of those shoes you'd be buying to try to make yourself look taller, but nor is it super thin and going to really be difficult and annoying to walk in. So it's standard sized, unsurprisingly. The laces themselves are thin, which makes them a little bit difficult to loosen when you're originally buying them, but you get used to that. That's perfectly normal. Now, on the sole itself, we have at the front of the sole and at the back, we've got some texturing. This helps to make them a little bit less slippy than would otherwise be the case, which is probably good. This texturing also gives a little bit of additional cushioning. This cushioning, again, makes these less uncomfortable than might otherwise be the case. Otherwise, the construction on the base of the shoe is fine. It's not particularly unusual, but it is perfectly adequate. This leads me on to aesthetics and appearance. And here it is really going to be a matter of personal preference and what you are using the shoes for. If you want shoes that are relatively plain, relatively normal looking, but just a little bit interesting, these shoes are going to achieve that. They look like ordinary business shoes. They are relatively normal looking. They are not going to excessively stand out. You don't have LV emblazoned everywhere, making them look over the top. However, they do look a little bit more interesting than standard business shoes. They're not just plain black business shoes, because you've got the epi leather toward the back of the shoes. This makes them a little bit more interesting, maybe a little bit more unique, without being so over the top, which is something that I quite like. I appreciate that they're interesting without being in your face about it. However, a lot of this will depend upon exactly what you want to get out of the shoes. If you want the shoes to look like plain, ordinary business shoes, like everyone else is wearing, these probably won't quite achieve that because they do look a little bit different. If you want them to be very over the top and very loud, these also would achieve that. Because they don't look so odd or unusual or weird, people are going to look at you strangely for wearing these shoes. Rather, they're just nice, elegant, slightly interesting business shoes that kind of go with suits or trousers or whatever it is that you're wearing in a more formal type setting. This then leads me on to comfort. And as you can see, there's a bit of a change of clothes because I was wearing the shoes around and sort of taking them for a bit of a test drive, so to speak, to make sure they were actually comfortable and road testing them. Now, with business shoes, there's often a few problems that can come up. Either A, they can be too small, particularly around the toes, because they kind of narrow in, and then they just start to squeeze your feet, and then things get really, really uncomfortable. They can go as cramps, make the shoes really annoying to wear for long times. And or B, they can start to rub your heel. That can occur because either A, the shoes are too big, because you need to go up a size to avoid them squeezing your feet, and or B, the positioning of the heel is such that they're too high, and therefore they start to dig into your heel when you're walking around. That is, the shoes aren't properly constructed from a height standpoint. Or C, the shoes might have too little padding in the sole, and therefore they start to feel very uncomfortable when you're walking around on pavement for extended time periods. So to test these out, I was wearing them around at meetings and the like, but also I went for about a 45-minute to an hour-long walk just through the city on pavement, and I did this a few times to make sure they were actually wearable, and it wasn't just going to be a once-off when they were either comfortable or not. So my experiences with these are, they're well above average as far as comfort goes for business shoes. For my feet, they neither squeezed my toes nor squeezed the rest of my foot, nor did they rub my heels. That is, they were neither too narrow, which was a surprise given these shoes appear to be quite tapered, nor were they too large, i.e. I didn't need to go up a size in order to avoid the shoes squeezing my feet. Furthermore, the height of the heel was not such that it would rub my heel when I was walking. Now again, a lot of this will depend upon your personal anatomy. A lot of it will depend upon how they feel on your feet when you are trying them on. So I would always recommend going into the store to make sure they fit rather than just buying them online. Of course, if you just do that, you run into the problem the sizing will be completely off because LV sizing is really weird. I had to order these a few times, back and forth exchanging them to make sure I got the right size. So make sure you actually do that. Furthermore, they had enough padding when I was walking around. Now I was walking on hard pavement, so it was not like I was walking on grass or something soft. So I was walking on pavement for 45 minutes to an hour on a couple of stretches. I found them more than adequate for this. That is, there was enough padding that they were comfortable. That's telling because a lot of business shoes, in the name of trying to look more aesthetically pleasing, they kind of skimp on padding, they just feel really uncomfortable and kind of cheap to construct, and therefore they just don't feel very wearable, and they'll start to hurt your feet after you're walking around for an extended time period. I've had this issue with some other shoes. I didn't have that problem with the LV shoes. So in short, they were comfortable, they didn't run into the common problems that business shoes often run into, and I found them eminently wearable for extended periods of time. Or in short, if you were to wear these in the office and wear them for a long time in the office, you're probably not going to hate it. So what then is my verdict on the shoes? Should you go ahead and buy them? Should you consider them? Or should you just outright avoid them? Well, for me, they are a solid consider, possibly a buy. I obviously owned them, so did buy them, but in terms of recommendation, probably a solid consider. And really depends upon A, what your budget is, and B, what you are looking for in a shoe. So these are noticeably more expensive than, say, Ferragamo, especially since Ferragamo is often on sale. However, they also had some additional value over Ferragamo and some other competitor brands. For example, I found them actually really quite comfortable. They were very wearable for an extended time period. They have enough padding on the sole to make them usable for walking around. They don't squeeze my feet. They don't rub my heels. I don't have to go through that awkward situation of, are the shoes either too tight or too big? Do they rub my heels or they squeeze my toes? These were just right, so to speak. And as a result, I found the additional comfort valuable. Furthermore, they look a little bit interesting without being too over the top. The epi-leather detailing is nice. It makes them look a little bit different from standard business shoes. It makes them look a little bit more interesting, but not so interesting that they look odd. Not so interesting they look over the top, or as if you were trying to shove LV logos into people's faces. rather than just a little bit different. And that little bit of difference is itself a little bit valuable. Now, whether that comfort and that interesting appearance is enough to make up for the cost is really a matter for your personal judgment. But in any case, if you are considering these shoes, I would always recommend going along and trying them, because LV sizing is, as I've indicated, a little bit weird. So therefore, I would definitely consider these shoes, and I am quite happy with my ownership of them. But if you've got any thoughts about these shoes, let me know that in the comments below. And if you've got any thoughts about other things I should try, also let me know that as well. But otherwise, thanks so much for listening to me drone on for the past 10 minutes or however long it is. I really appreciate your time, and hopefully I see you for the next video as well.